My name is David Carl Olson. I'm a minister here in Maryland.
I'm Paige Getty. I'm a minister of a Unitarian Universalist congregation here in Maryland.
I am Rabbi Tova Dodi, and I am a Jewish spiritual leader in Maryland.
We are social justice leaders and supporters of transgender rights.
Transgender people are those who know in their heart and mind that they are a different gender than the gender assigned at birth, and make an effort to live their lives as the gender they know they are.
Historically, faith communities have been on the forefront of social justice issues and community change. Faith communities have fed the hungry and the homeless. We have set up hospitals and helped to care for the sick. And faith communities have stood up for social justice legislation such as immigration reform and the repeal of the death penalty here in Maryland.
It's important that we talk about our transgender siblings. This is an important social justice issue that every congregation get involved with.
Faith communities have a unique opportunity to stand on the side of fairness for those who are mistreated.
You know, I grew up in the church, and I was blessed to have both the classmates I worked with and the adults who cared for us as people with whom I could share very openly. But I had a secret, and it was a great welcome for me to bring this to my pastor and to not be rejected as I thought I ought to have been, but instead to have been welcomed and encouraged to be the ethical and moral and spiritual gay man that I could be. Years later, I was a seminarian, and in the congregation I was serving, I knew some transgender people through activist work that we had done in earlier years, and I was so pleased to be able to help them find a place to be, and I began to learn what it meant for me to be their ally. When people discover things about their gender, I want them to have a place where they know they're going to receive companionship and support, where they can bring their pain and people will understand, and where they can learn to fight together to make things better.
I'm a woman, and I grew up learning all about patriarchy and feminism, but it wasn't until I was in seminary that I was introduced in a very personal way to transgender identity and experience when my friend Barb came out to me as a trans guy. I was invited to accompany him on that journey, and through his eyes and experience, I learned what it can be like to truly be excluded. And also, I learned about the blessings of being included and welcomed and loved, and especially by a faith community. In our Unitarian Universalist tradition, we celebrate the use of reason, we celebrate the evolution of understanding, we celebrate the way that humans have responsibility in bringing about divine justice. And we are committed to listening to one another and learning from one another, and to embracing everyone and honoring their worth and dignity.
Back in the 90s, I spent a lot of time working on human rights, gay rights, lesbian rights. I worked with Free State Justice Campaign in getting rights for all Marylanders in the Maryland state legislature. At the time, the transgender community came to us and asked that they be included in the laws that we were working on. And unfortunately, we were told that the climate wasn't right, the time wasn't right, that nobody would be willing to accept a law with that in there. I spent a lot of time traveling around the state of Maryland, working with the transgender community and educating people as to what transgender rights needed to be, why they needed to be, and how we needed to make changes. I am still making that same effort and still doing that same work, and hopefully this year in the legislation we can get that passed.
Our faith traditions are different, but we are all called to work for transgender rights, especially because of the intimidation and the violence that transgender people in our state face every day.
The fact is that when transgender people find a place that they feel at home, a chosen family, they experience discrimination and mistreatment much less.
Over 50% of transgender Marylanders report having experienced violence, harassment, intimidation, denial of services. Here are just a few ways that our faith communities can help transgender people feel welcome.
Let people self-identify into sex-segregated groups and make it clear that they are welcome to do that freely. For example, let it be known that trans men are welcomed in your men's study groups and that trans women are welcomed into your women's groups.
Host an educational opportunity